Yes.
All the members of the team are here? I assume that's a yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
we're waiting for.
Yes, we are.
I'm waiting for the judges to join the room and the grand final could start. Okay, Daniela, are you here?
Sí, dime. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. As Kata is having some trouble in order to go into the room, may you proceed to do the random of the positions?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm here now.
Oh. Is Kata here now or no?
Yes, I'm here now.
Oh, perfect. So you can maybe say the positions of the teams.
Okay, will one of the team captains please say left or right?
Could we have the one on your left, please?
What team are you?
Lions.
Okay, so left, Lions, you guys are in favor. Which means that the opposing team will be against. All right, so then, without further ado, we invite the introductory speaker for Team Lions to make their speech, please.
Yes, 1 second, please. Es una mierda esto, tío. Cuidado. Vale, de esto tengo que conectar ahora con la cámara. Hay luz. Vale. Es la cámara. ¿Dónde está? Aquí. Vale, esa está. Este micro está aquí. Can you hear us?
Yes, loud and clear. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
I'm doing the introduction for. Can you see and hear me properly?
Yes, perfectly. You can start whenever you want.
Okay. Good morning, esteemed judges and team opposition. My name is Shanna, and I'm here today together with my teammates, Hoyon, Paolo, and Charlotte, to defend the motion that the rapid rise of e-commerce is having a positive impact on society. Team proposition defines e-commerce as a commercial transaction conducted electronically on the internet, and society as a group of people living as a community. The e-commerce industry has never been as relevant as it is today. As society progresses and new innovations develop, the marketplace should also improve to keep up with its rising demand. We must also acknowledge that it is the consumers who decide how the market works, and as the motion states, e-commerce's rapid rise suggests our society is eager for this new industry to prosper. The global pandemic has also helped to exemplify the need of e-commerce in our society. It has been beneficial to consumers by enabling them to purchase essential products which they could otherwise not purchase, especially people in our society at risk from the disease, the elderly, and others with health problems. Prove we require e-commerce in order to be a healthy and functional society. Moreover, e-commerce was also the solution for many businesses, helping them to overcome financial difficulties. Even though some countries still face economic struggles, it would have been so much worse if it were not for e-commerce. As a society, we need to be strong and adapt to tough changes, be innovative, and allow new industries such as e-commerce to develop and thrive. Today, Team Proposition will explain why e-commerce is beneficial to the economy and society. Our 4 main points are: e-commerce allows small businesses to have bigger and better opportunities and expand beyond their borders. Why e-commerce is beneficial to people with reduced mobility and people with mental illness. The prosperity e-commerce brings to employment. And now e-commerce brings an increase in competition, which is advantageous to low-income consumers. Team Proposition will explain how e-commerce furthers globalization, resulting in small businesses being able to cater to the whole world instead of just their local town or city. According to Adobe Analytics, over the course of the holiday season so far, small retailers have seen an average of 110% increase in online sales. Also, according to Vivek Pandaya, the Senior Digital Insights Manager with Adobe Analytics, she says that there has been a lot of demand and a lot of opportunity for retailers of all sizes to support demand online. So, why is that in the way of these small businesses flourishing when it is evident that they have so much to gain from e-commerce? We will also prove that e-commerce facilitates shopping for people with disabilities that interfere with day-to-day interactions, or people who are diagnosed with medical conditions such as social anxiety. The scarcity of accessible parking, lack of elevators, high product shelves are shopping challenges disabled often have to face. But according to the Diversibility magazine, online shopping eliminates many of these challenges. They also highlight how most major e-commerce companies work with advocacy groups to ensure their websites are accessible to everyone. E-commerce acknowledgement and aid of these people means it is definitely having a positive impact on society. Furthermore, we will prove that the belief of e-commerce being harmful to the employment rates is false and naive, because the employment rate will not be affected by online shopping. Instead, there will be new markets offering a plethora of available jobs to people. Lastly, we will develop our first point by highlighting even more advantages of globalization. We will show that competition allows some prices to go down, meaning low-income consumers will also profit by having access to their products they could previously not dream of. This means that living conditions will consequently also improve, which is definitely positive for society. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your speech. We invite the introductory speaker of the team against to make theirs, please.
One moment, please. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, very well. Start whenever you're ready.
Pandora's box, set to hold all the evils that plague this world. This is our Pandora's box, and we made the same mistake she made. We opened it. Good afternoon. My name is Sergio from Team for Debaters, and along with my colleagues, we will firmly defend that the rapid rise in e-commerce is not positive for society. But first, I would like to define the debate's question. We understand that the rapid rise of e-commerce refers to the boom of 2014, as shown in this evidence, where the increase is exponential. When talking about e-commerce, we understand it as any business activity done on a digital platform, and we define positive impact as something beneficial enough to the members of our society. We base our argumentative line on the following thesis. We consider that the rapid rise in e-commerce is negative, as the possible advantages do not outweigh the negative impact on our society. To back up this thesis, we have three main arguments: an economic argument, a social argument, an environmental argument. Going back with our first argument, the economic argument, based on two main reasons: lack of competition and loss of jobs. Our first reason, lack of competition. The rapid rise of e-commerce has had a negative impact on small and medium-sized businesses. It's harder for smaller businesses to compete against giants like Amazon or Alibaba, whose sizes in the market have never been seen before. This makes competition impossible for smaller organizations, as well as promoting monopolization. Our second reason is jobs, based on loss and quality. Businesses have to adapt to the rapidly growing sector in order to become more efficient and survive. How? By buying technology. which allows businesses to be more productive and much cheaper. This means that many jobs are being lost due to e-commerce, and any job that may be created is low quality. Our second argument is a social argument. This argument is based on two sub-arguments: inequality and risk. E-commerce has been widening the gap between developing and developed countries. Besides this advantage, only comes the cost of job quality and quantity. Due to the fast rise of e-commerce, countries have not been able to adapt their laws correctly, leaving loopholes that these companies can exploit with extreme ease, as stated by a study on taxation of e-commerce. But not only are risks linked to companies and government, consumers are also affected as the quality of products is not ensured, and therefore their information can be stolen. Our last argument is environmental, based on the increase in waste production and carbon emissions. More orders means more waste due to an increase in packages that will end up in the ocean, as a study from Oceana says, where Amazon alone created 465 million tons of plastic waste only in 2019. This plastic has an enormous impact, as will endanger animals all over the planet. But this isn't the only environmental impact. In fact, due to the rapid rise of e-commerce, what was one shopping run is now lots of little orders. So now there are more carbon emissions, more trips to and from warehouses, more and therefore more pollution, as the government has not been able to regulate these businesses who have appeared that fast. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech. We invite the first rebuttal from the team in favor to make their intervention, please.
Hello, okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, members of the opposition and esteemed judges. I would like to begin with some rebuttal to some of the main points team proposition have raised. Team opposition have defined e-commerce as a platform for all online sales, yet went on to only use the giants on the e-commerce world to critique it. They also mentioned how they failed to acknowledge that Amazon, which they use as an example, provides the platform for other smaller businesses to use it. As a reference, there are 2 million small businesses using Amazon Marketplace in order to sell their products. They also fail to acknowledge that larger firms, large behemoth companies such as Alibaba, Amazon, are encouraged to protect their brand image and also pressured by their relationships with the governments in order to change their sustainability goals. And that one clear example of that is Amazon Environmental Plan, which aims to use 100% renewable energy by 2025 in all of its operations. And now I will proceed with our main points. Our first point is based on globalization. Globalization has never been accessible to small businesses. Throughout history, the government has always controlled the commerce with other nations, and only the rich benefited from the international interactions. For example, in countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo, where citizens have no access to international commerce, the average yearly salary is only $249. Yet, e-commerce has given small businesses a chance to sell to a wider market, one of 3.5 billion users, in fact. Any physical business, whether it be a franchise or a small family-owned business, is only able to access the people within the city area of a few hundreds of kilometers. However, e-commerce has brought upon every business the ability to sell, buy, and deliver to every possible consumer which has access to the internet. The ability to be able to sell to more people only means enterprises can now flourish more easily, and countries with flourishing enterprises will grow economically. Team opposition failed to acknowledge the small group of people who depend on e-commerce. People with disabilities, people who live in isolated zones, and people with social anxiety. The Americans with Disability Act of 1990 prohibits discrimination based on disability. Hence, most web pages have disability-friendly interfaces, whilst many retailers still don't provide sufficient care for their disabled customers free of charge. Online shopping offers people with vision impairments and other disabilities to shop from the comfort of their homes without having to worry about other logistics. With these obvious benefits, we Team Proposition can't see how Team Opposition can suggest that e-commerce is not having a positive impact on our society. And this also applies to the current COVID-19 pandemic and the elderly. Esteemed judges, even with retailers closing down due to e-commerce and employees losing their jobs, e-commerce industry generates more jobs. As enterprises become less risky and conventional retailers close down, e-commerce will thrive and the number of e-retailers will grow, as the factors affecting success will be less related to the location, branding, and service, and more focused on quality of production. People who lose their job on retail will gain a job in another newborn e-commerce business due to the creation of new markets. Because an industrial revolution, as the word suggests, is just a term. Over time, industries have changed and the population has grown exponentially. However, employment rate has remained steady and quality of life has improved. And this is exactly what e-commerce is going to achieve. This year alone, due to the pandemic, 400,000 new jobs were created thanks to the growth in e-commerce. And this Christmas, GameStop, a business which nearly reached bankruptcy, was able to sell over $1.39 billion worth of products thanks to e-commerce. E-commerce has led to an increase in 309% of the sales of GameStop, and e-commerce saved GameStop from bankruptcy even before its stock market boom. This is just one of many examples of how e-commerce can allow businesses to thrive. Our last point relates to the growing competition of markets. Competition is the mother of fair commerce, and thanks to it, now people of lower income will have the possibility to buy products which they could not have even dreamt of buying before. In June 2007, the first smartphone was launched for $500, unattainable for many. But now, thanks to an increase in the competition in the tech industry, smartphones can be purchased for as little as $50. Hence, greater competition can only be classified as positive, which clearly shows that e-commerce can benefit society by bridging the inequality gap. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Since you did exceed the time by 13 seconds, you will be giving a warning. We invite the first rebuttal for the team against to make their speech, please.
Sorry, I believe that the questions are within the whole intervention with the hand up. How can we do it?
Sorry?
I believe that the questions aren't seen.
Sorry, I didn't see any question.
Yes, because within the whole debate, our familiar says that you can see the question.
Yeah, it's because you're as a guest.
I could see the function of the hand being up on the bottom, so I think it's just maybe a question of you guys paying closer attention to the bottom of the screen of who is in the chat.
Solo lo vemos nosotros porque somos los moderadores. Si quieres, levanto yo mi manita si veo alguna pregunta o lo que sea, para que tú estés.
Bueno, lo voy a hacer yo porque tú apareces.
Yo sí que he visto la mano del equipo.
Okay, so Isa, the other judge, will be raising her hand simultaneously when she sees that one of you guys have raised your hands, all right? So if you see the judge raising her hand, that means that the opposing team has a question.
Okay.
Okay, then, we invite the first rebuttal for the team against, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Start whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Alvaro Pineda, and the structure followed will be very simple. First, rebut the opposing team argument, then construct my own. In the first argument, they talked about the business economic growth and how it is beneficial. However, this argument is completely false due to two main reasons. First one, it doesn't benefit small businesses as we are competing in a market never seen before. For example, with web positioning, where you have to be in the first page in Google, where you have to pay a lot of money to in order to you to see your company. Therefore, we will be only promoting monopolies, as I'll further explain. The second point is that even if it benefited small companies, we will be widening the gap between rich and poor and developed and developing countries. Why? Because maybe in a developed country, you have the resources and you have the Wi-Fi connection to start a business or to buy in e-commerce. However, developing countries don't have these resources. Therefore, we are going to increase the gap between rich and poor. The third argument talked about creation of jobs. However, again, this argument is completely false due to two main reasons. First, jobs are actually being destroyed, not created. Since in e-commerce, there's going to be more technology implemented and less work is needed. As I'll further explain my argumentative line. Second point, which is more importantly, even if jobs were created, they will be of low quality. As we have already explained, they have lower wages with less breaks and harder conditions. Therefore, doing a balance between the possible creation of worse jobs and the loss of better ones, we clearly see how e-commerce has a negative impact in our society. Now I proceed to construct my own argumentative line. Our first argument is the economic argument based on two main reasons: the lack of competition and loss of jobs. Our first reason is the lack of competition. Today, it's almost impossible for smaller businesses to compete against huge rivals, since they weren't able to enter the e-commerce market when it began to grow. Moreover, the companies that were at the top now hold such high positions that they are untouchable, invincible, and they are becoming monopolies. For example, the opposing team tried to rebut this argument, stating that Amazon is helping small businesses. However, the scandal, we are going to present the scandal where Amazon was involved in, where they found themselves stealing ideas from small businesses and selling them as their own, making it impossible for small businesses to compete, to grow, and to prosper. These monopolies also make competition practically impossible. The competition we have today has never been seen before because companies have never been so big, and e-commerce has allowed this to happen. For example, in the e-commerce sector, more than 58% of the e-commerce market is sold just by 6 companies. And even if you think that Amazon promotes small businesses as its opposing team tried to state, we just proved that they were stealing the products and the idea, which of course is negative for small businesses and for society. Our second reason is the loss of jobs and job quality. As explained in our introduction, businesses had to employ more technology in order to keep up with the market, which has led to elimination of jobs. In fact, e-commerce accounts for more than 1,100 jobs lost in the retail sector, just in the UK, as stated by the RSA. But even if you could think that we can maintain or we are just creating some jobs, those are still not beneficial because of their quality. Where retail workers could earn more than $44,000, Amazon only paid its warehouses employees $31,000. On top of that, many of these Amazon workers condemn the poor quality and the safety of the environment they work, with practically no breaks and high injury rates that triple the national average warehouse injuries, as stated by the OSHA. Therefore, we are not only losing jobs, but the ones that we maintain have low quality. Our second argument is the social argument based on inequality and risk. Our first reason is inequality. The rapid rise in e-commerce is widening the gap between rich and poor, developed and developing countries. Not only do developing countries have fewer resources, like for example, the access to internet, but they've also been unable to adapt to this rapid change, mainly because the e-commerce are innovation in developed countries. What this means is that only rich countries will be able to take advantages of these advantages of the e-commerce, which widen the gap between rich and poor. This is negative because it will lead in an unequal society that also affects countries as Nigeria that have the potential resources to do so, but they don't have the capital available to take advantage of e-commerce. Our second reason is risk. Not only there are risks of companies making use of fiscal paradises, as my colleague has already explained, but there are also risks that affect consumers. Consumers are buying products with almost no ensured quality while also risking their private information. For example, a cyber attack on the Target website resulted in the loss of credit and card and personal information for 110 million people at the beginning of 2014. All of these are consequences of the government not being able to adapt to this rapid change, to adapt the laws to the rapid change due to the rapid change of e-commerce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time, for your speech. Sorry, we invite the second rebuttal of the team in favor to make theirs, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paolo Conorto, and I'm here because I fully support the rapid rise of e-commerce as a positive impact to society. I will start with some rebuttal regarding how the opposition keeps on talking about how Amazon is a monopoly. However, Amazon is not a monopoly. Actually, Amazon only produce about 10% of the products they sell, because most of the products they sell are actually from other retailers. The other retailers are, in fact, a stunning 2 million businesses which can sell through Amazon. This deems their argument about how having the top search on Google being the most important thing when promoting your business unreliable, as all of the businesses will appear the first, as they are bound to be under Amazon. Think of Amazon not as a company which exploits and sells stuff. Think of Amazon as a shopping mall which you go to buy. Amazon just helps small retailers to grow as a shopping mall would for normal retailers. However, it has many more advantages. Amazon is on its path of powering operations within 100% renewable energy by 2040. And only in 2019, it had the best renewable energy percentage in the world, having a stunning 42%. They keep on talking about how job quality has decreased by talking about a mean salary, but you should also compare the amount of hours being worked per country, and if it's within the minimum wage cap, which it is. They also kept on talking about how it will destroy many job places. However, Amazon only in summer, because of the buffing increase of e-commerce, has created 400,000 new jobs, all within the correct waging caps and actually above it, having $14 an hour, which is way above $11 an hour rates. Also, there has been a lack of evidence when talking about what they deem as low quality, as they only express that salary is low quality. They should also look at job motivation, which is probably higher in Amazon, as there are bonuses such as Amazon Prime or other fringe benefits. When talking about the developing countries, spreading the inequality within developing countries and developed countries, they lack the idea of primary, secondary, and tertiary sectors. Most countries which they talked about are within the primary sector and are just now industrializing. What does industrialization mean? It means they can produce goods and get more money. Yes, please, the question, Isabel.
Are you aware of the Amazon scandal in 2017, where this monopoly stole the small business idea and sold them as their own?
Well, if there's no copyright, it is actually not a scandal, because it is within legal rules. If I find an idea and I do not register it, someone else will find it and will take advantage of it. Furthermore, these countries such as China are benefiting from e-commerce, as they can now grow their industry, and within time they will also set their own shops to sell. I would also like to talk about all the plastic and cardboard packaging they were referring to before. The mere fact that people have the option to stay at home and order online contributes to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, as only one person has to make the trip instead of 100 people going every minute to a new shopping center. And being at the risk of COVID. Let's not forget COVID, this pandemic which has struck us and makes this debate be online instead of in person. Thanks to COVID, countries such as the US or most countries in Europe have had the advantage of not going to supermarkets. All people can stay at home. They do not need to risk their life in order to get some apples. Whilst in South America, there has been a great correlation between the number of COVID cases and the access to supermarkets. If supermarkets in Latin America would have had e-commerce, there wouldn't have been so many contagious for their weak social security systems. Furthermore, I would like to talk about how they talk about retailing closing down. However, this is just the natural turn of things. In the US, retail and food services sales between February and April 2020 were about 7.7% compared to 2019. However, sales increased for grocery stores and non-store retailers by 16 to 14.8% respectively. In the EU, retail sales via mail order houses or the internet in April 2020 increased by 30% compared to April 2019. While total retail sales diminished in 17.9%. This only proves that having e-commerce helps us to protect us from pandemics and protect the people which are the most vulnerable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your intervention. We invite the second rebuttal from the team against to make their speech, please.
Can you hear me? Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
whenever you're ready.
Good afternoon, my name is Ana Pérez, and the structural flow will be very simple. First, I will rebut the opponent team's arguments, and then proceed to construct our own argumentative line. So first, I'd like to start by rebutting their second argument, since my colleague already rebutted the first one. In this argument, they talk how it's going to be beneficial for those with mobility issues and with mental issues. So I'll rebut it separately. First of all, regarding mobility. There are already other solutions that are already implemented and we could even implement that don't have the disadvantages of e-commerce. Take, for example, ramps in supermarkets to make sure that those with mobility issues are able to access it. Therefore, e-commerce isn't the solution to this problem. We already have solutions to this. Furthermore, they talked about illnesses. But once again, how is this helping those people with illnesses if all we are doing is sticking them inside their houses? It's not helping them. We are actually isolating them. We are actually isolating them. How will they ever integrate in society if we never let them face their fears? Therefore, it is actually going to be worse for people with these illnesses. Furthermore, I proceed to rebut their fourth argument, which was competition, which clashes directly with our lack of competition argument. Which clashes directly with our lack of competition argument. This profit rise has left small businesses aside. It's actually much worse for them. Why? Because small businesses do not have the necessary capital to be able to implement e-commerce correctly. In the end, this means that we have big businesses that are eating these small businesses. In the end, it ends up being just like a monopoly, only that it's 5 big leading companies that take care of all the market. I don't know if there's a question. I think so. Is there a question? Yes. Will someone want to?
Yes. Are you aware of the fact that you can sell in Amazon and thus access e-commerce with a buffer only 15% of your overall revenue?
Thank you for the question. I was going to get to that in the end, but I'll say it right now. Yes, you brought up the argument or the reason that Amazon is made up by small businesses. And as my colleague has already explained, it's actually much worse for these small businesses. Why? First of all, because those who are making the majority of the profit are not the small businesses. It's Amazon. Amazon is the one that keeps growing exponentially, while these small businesses are left in the dust. Furthermore, what Amazon is doing is stealing the ideas of these small businesses and selling them as their own. Therefore, how is it beneficial for small businesses if we are exploiting them? Now I'll proceed to rebut reasoning they gave inside the fourth argument, which was how there are cheaper prices, I believe. But first of all, these cheaper prices come at a cost. And what is the cost in this case? Very easily, it's through the exploitation of workers and through bad quality of products. As my colleague has already proved, we can see that they are exploiting the workers. How? Very easily, with three reasonings. First of all, in e-commerce, they tripled the injury rate, the national average injury rate with those in retail. So we can already see that these are having much more injuries than those in retail, which is obviously not beneficial. Furthermore, they have lower wages, in many cases less than the minimum. Thirdly, these people in e-commerce have no breaks. As my colleague already showed in an evidence, they work 12-hour shifts with no breaks. So these are what we refer to as bad conditions. Furthermore, I proceed to reconstruct my own argument. They try to rebut our first argument, the economics, saying how we have the job quality, saying how we have no evidence and how they are going to have job motivation. But as I have already explained, these jobs have lower quality. Furthermore, they try to rebut our third argument, the environmental, saying how they have plans for 2025. But first of all, these businesses are right now not doing enough. Why? Because the only thing these businesses care about is money. Why? Because the stakeholders depend on this money. Therefore, if they have to think about money and their own gain or the environmental impact, they're obviously going to look out for themselves. And that is why right now they are having a bad environmental impact. But furthermore, even if we took the word of these businesses and assume that in 2025 they're going to accomplish their objectives, this still would not be enough, as I'm going to explain in my argumentative line. So now, coming back to my argumentative line. Our third argument is the environmental argument, because there are many ways that e-commerce has had a negative impact on the environment, one of them being the increase in waste production. Amazon alone created 400 million pounds of plastic waste in 2019, and Oceania, an NGO in charge of marine conservation, estimated that 22.4 million of those would end up in the oceans. As explained in the introduction, another impact is the increase in CO2 emissions due to the misuse of space used for transporting products, resulting in more trips to and from warehouse to buyer. As we can see in this evidence, Amazon pollutes as much as any small country, and this is obviously not beneficial. So if we do a balance between that which we save from not going to a shop and all the pollution that's causing the transportation of products across countries and the many deliveries workers have to do to each house, we can clearly see that there is a much worse environmental impact than beneficial. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that intervention. We invite the concluding speaker from Team Free Debaters to make their final intervention of this debate.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Start whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. Hello, my name is Raquel Santamaria from Team Free Debaters, and I would like to thank the judges, the public, and our opposing team for such a thrilling debate. Now I'd like to come back to our opposing team's arguments. Our opposing team had four main arguments. In their first argument, they spoke about how e-commerce is helping small businesses, gives them a chance to sell to a larger market. However, as my colleagues were able to rebut, this would be great if they were able to access the market and make themselves known. However, they cannot, as they don't have the financial ability or technological infrastructure to do so. And even if they could, only those businesses that appear on the first page of Google, for example, receive 90% of the clicks and thus 90% of the views and sales. How can a small startup business do this if they aren't recognized like the giant monopolies that are competing against them? Secondly, you spoke about how it's helping disadvantaged group, for example, people with social anxiety. However, as my colleague was able to rebut, how are we helping these people with social anxiety if we are just keeping them in a box? How can these people with social anxiety overcome their fears if we are just giving them a way to stay at home and not come out and learn how to integrate into society? You also talked about how e-commerce is creating employment. However, as you were able to explain, jobs are actually being destroyed by automation. And even if they weren't, the jobs that are being created by e-commerce have low quality and low pay. For example, e-commerce jobs triple the injury rate compared to retail jobs. How is that a good quality? And lastly, you talked about how there are advantages of globalization, such as, for example, competition and cheaper costs. However, it isn't competition. It's annihilation of smaller businesses that can't compete against the giant monopolies that they are trying to compete against. And lastly, cheaper costs. Even if, okay, cheaper costs means you need to cut costs somewhere else. And usually that's in salaries of workers that are already being overworked. And lastly, even if these weren't being overworked or cut salaries, the cheap costs promote consumerism, which in the end is worse for pollution. And lastly, I would like to come back to our arguments. In our first economic argument, we speak of a lack of competition and how small businesses can't compete against these giants. Now, you said Amazon helps small businesses, but we came at you with how, if it's stealing their ideas from them and making a profit off of them. We also spoke about loss of job quantity and quality. You tried to rebut this by saying that more jobs are created. However, as we were able to rebut in your own creating job and employment argument, the jobs being created are of low quality and they don't pay as much as retail jobs. We have our social argument, which was not rebutted by the opposing team, where we speak about how the inequality between countries and minority and disadvantaged groups, such as women, is being grown because of e-commerce, because not everyone can access it. And lastly, we speak about risk and how you don't know what you're getting, what the quality of the product you're buying is, or if your data will be stolen from you. Lastly, we talked about our environmental argument, which talked about CO2 emissions. Now, you said that Amazon had an environmental plan, yet we have evidence that says that Amazon pollutes as much as a small country. And lastly, the final point, which you did not rebut, there is more plastic and waste production caused by consumerism due to the ease of shopping. So This is our Pandora's box, a gift which seemed beneficial, but is actually a curse. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys very much for your interventions. It was a fantastic debate. We'll try to give you the results as soon as
We're
possible.
missing a conclusion.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Concluding speaker for team in favor.
Yep. Okay. Good afternoon, my name is Charlotte, and I'll be concluding team proposition's arguments. I'll first discuss team opposition's arguments and our rebuttals to them. Team opposition tried to argue that the rapid rise of e-commerce has not had a positive impact on society due to the lack of competition that e-commerce creates. However, e-commerce allows more small businesses to enter the market, which quite evidently increases competition, which lowers the prices of products, giving those of lower socioeconomic statuses a chance to participate in the economic market. Further, they stated that e-commerce is increasing unemployment rates. However, this is completely false, as we have proved with our first speaker, as e-commerce actually promotes creative destruction, which creates more jobs long-term, as proven by the increase in number of Amazon employees. Further, as proven by our second speaker, traditional retail stores have the nature of closing very frequently. Thus, this cannot be blamed on e-commerce. Team opposition argued additionally that e-commerce only creates low-quality jobs. Nonetheless, these jobs have always existed, and e-commerce actually creates many more jobs in the technology industry, which are not deemed as low-quality jobs. And e-commerce in reality pays above minimum wage. Thus, team opposition's arguments that e-commerce is a net negative is categorically wrong. Regarding labor conditions and many arguments, team opposition inserted statements which we had no chance to rebut. Team opposition further attempted to argue that e-commerce creates more plastic waste and increases in emissions. However, this is a naive argument presented by team opposition. Plastic is a global issue, not an e-commerce issue. The increase in plastic and increase in emissions cannot be solely blamed on e-commerce, despite team opposition's attempt to do so. Innovation is vital to helping with our environmental crisis, which is what e-commerce helps with. Further, major e-commerce companies like Amazon are working to become greener with sustainability goals, as stated by our first speaker. As our first speaker stated, e-commerce allows globalization of small businesses, allowing economic prosperity to all. This allows consumers located in rural areas to be able to purchase products as well as participate in the global market. This breaches the inequality gap and ensures equality for both consumers and suppliers, which team opposition was concerned about. Thus, e-commerce encourages social mobility. Moreover, team opposition failed to recognize that e-commerce benefits those in developing countries. The factors necessary for e-commerce are located in developing countries, and therefore they provide jobs to those in rural areas, and allow the rural economy to thrive. Team opposition further failed to recognize the benefits of e-commerce provided to those with any sort of disability, which are undeniable. They also stated that those with social anxiety should face their fears, which is such an insensitive ableist argument, which is immoral. Further, the benefits of the rapid rise of e-commerce have only proven itself during the times of COVID, in which many people rely on their online purchases. Team opposition stated that they were going to show that e-commerce was an overall net negative, which they have failed to do so. Like everything, there is a negative, but in our arguments, we have shown that ultimately it is positive. Thus, the rapid rise of e-commerce is promoting an innovative society, which ensures the economy to prosper and ensures equality. Therefore, the rapid rise of e-commerce is having a clear positive impact on society, which is why team proposition should win. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that concluding speech. After this fantastic debate, we will deliberate and try to get back to you guys with the results as soon as possible. But until then, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good debate.
Thank you. Really good debate. Good luck, guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.